Could you explain real quick for our listeners what an antibiotic, just briefly, what it does to the human body?
Okay, an antibiotic has the ability to kill bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes only after bacteria. It can't differentiate between what's good and what's bad. Okay, so when you take it in the body, it goes, into your system, and you're supposed to have good flora in your intestines because that's what helps your body break down food and operate and feel good. And so when doctors give you an antibiotic, this particular Lyme doctor knew to treat us with a probiotic, which would be an acid. Yeah, so you would take the antibiotic, and then several hours later, then you would take your probiotic. Because what you want to do is the antibiotic comes in and wipes out all the flora, and then you would come back in and put good flora.
Right. So at least there was some balance there for you guys. Okay.
Now, this doctor was versed on that, where many others are not. So people would take antibiotics, and then they would what happens is when you don't rebalance that flora, yeast that naturally is in your intestinal tract overgrows. And over time, what happens to your called a thick mucosal lining, your intestine, is it wears down and it becomes like a cheesecloth.
Right.
And then good and bad, go out into your bloodstream, and so the yeast travels and it can go to the brain. And there's some really neat books out there and stuff. And what happens is when it's kind of like spiny, it grows like with legs and stuff like that. It's very invasive. It sets off a ton of chemicals and stuff in your body that are very harmful to your liver, your kidneys, and all that. So.
All right. Okay. Thank you. You can go back to the story now. Sorry, Laurie.
Okay, that's all right. So that's what that does. So it's real important to, keep your intestines in track when you're on medicines. So we were doing this, and I'm telling you, it was a drain on our business. It was a drain on our family life. But when I went off medicine, I was back in bed. So there was no way not to do, we relied on it. It was what we were relying on. God was soon to show me that he's the only thing that you can rely on. Mm-hmm. So we're at the doctor's office, and it's midnight. And this was the state of so many people then. There was so many people seeing, very few doctors treating Lyme. And you go for a 6 o'clock appointment, and you wouldn't be seen till 6 or 7 hours later, you know? It was like midnight, a school night where the kids had school in it, and we still hadn't been seen by the doctor. And my husband turned and looked at me and said, "We're done with this." He just said, that's what he said. "We're done with this." He said, and inside of me, I'm saying, "Oh my God, how could you do it? You take it away my lifeline. Who's gonna give me medicine? How am I gonna get medicine?"
We're firing them all again.
Like Gary's been this real good, stable thing in all this. He's just been so good.
I just like him more and more every time you tell me about these stories. Yeah.
He's
very firm. I like that.
He's he's steady. And he says, "I don't know, Lori." He goes, "You've been checking into I was checking into chiropractic, and I had met a doctor we used to take our Lyme organization, go to fairs and stuff like that. And I met a chiropractic group that wanted me to come in and see what they had to offer. And I had gone in because I was an advocate for Lyme patients at that point, and I wanted to see if they had something to offer people, even though I was seeing a chiropractor. And so, Gary, I don't know what he had in his head. I said, "But, what are we going to do? We maybe had a month's worth of medicine left." He goes, "I don't know what we're going to do, but we're not doing this anymore." And something way in the back of my head just said, "Trust me, trust Gary." And it was God clearly speaking to me and saying, "Walk out. I'm going to take care of this." And that was like, I can't even tell you, that was like the biggest leap of faith because, we were taking medicine for 4 years solid. We were on antibiotics and antimalarials because Babesia is not a bacteria. It's a parasite.
Okay.
And you cannot kill it with an antibiotic. And that's why a lot of people that were getting diagnosed with Lyme and maybe being treated right away with antibiotics were not getting well because they had co-diseases.
So co-infectious diseases are diseases with them cohabitating with the Lyme.
Diseases that are also in the tick, yeah.
Wow. So it's not just dealing with one issue. You need to find out all the different issues and simultaneously attack them.
Right. You have to know. There's like categories. There's fungus, there's yeast, there's virus, there's bacteria, and they don't all treat. with the same types of medicines. They don't all treat with the same types of herbs either.
Right.
So we left, and I went to that chiropractic group, and I had a good long talk with the lead doctor there, and he said, Lori, he goes, I don't care that you have Lyme. He said, if we can find out why your body's not fighting disease, that's when you're going to get well. And it's like, isn't that a different concept?
That's a new approach.
Start at
Isn't
the
that
base,
a new concept,
Wow.
why your body doesn't fight disease? It's like, I never thought about that. Like, all everybody's ever doing is concentrating on, this cancer, MS, like they have this disease.
What we
but
see in front of us, the present.
Yeah. But they're never saying, like, why do some people fight it and some don't? There's got to be some kind of a commonality.
Sure.
There. And so, I took that in the back of my head, and I listened to his program, and what they did there for us is they taught us a lot of things. Within 3 months, I came off of all my medicine. I had to work really hard. I was pretty atrophied at the time, lost a lot of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even do 5 minutes on a treadmill, like at low speed when I first started. And like 3 months later, I was just like a totally different person. But they worked on our spines. I had a twisted spine. Later come to find out it had to do with metals being in my body. We didn't find that out right away, but metals in your body put a big stress on your spine and the muscles that support your spine. I believe that that's kind of tied to scoliosis and the osteoporosis curvatures and stuff like that. And,
Okay.
it has a play in how the spine and the nerves in the spine and the muscles in the spine operate. They taught us how to grocery shop. We learned, we live in the modern convenience age, and everybody wants something from a box where you can just do it quick. And
Thanks.
we ate a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that. But when I started looking at it, we still were eating, some junk. And they said to stay on the outside of the supermarket. That's where all the dairy and the dairy, the meat, the vegetables, the fruit are. Very rarely should you ever need to go into the middle aisles. And we still shop that way today. We try to, kind of stick to that. We did things at home, like we put a reverse osmosis system on our water. That too. He wanted me to not have chlorine. This doctor I just think he was awesome. He said your bodies are like rain barrels. And you have so many things going on and they overflow. And if you can get some of the things out that are keeping you from fighting, you have a chance at your immune system, helping, kicking in and fighting. And then we were introduced to kinesiology there, muscle testing, and looking for disease in the body that way and treating it with herbals. And we did a lot of cleansing, like colon cleansing, yeast cleansing, parasite cleansing, all of that. And we just kept getting better, and we're getting better. So we decided to stay in that direction. And then one day I sat there and said, okay, we left pills for medicinal pills, and now we're taking all these other, these other types of pills. Then I got introduced to a new doctor. My son, Ryan, we got to a certain point where we were all doing pretty well, but then my son, Ryan, became really atrophied again and extremely fatigued and tired and just wasn't functioning. And it's really hard when you're a parent. You guys are starting to be parents and stuff like that. You'll really see one day it's like, you hurting is one thing, but your kid hurting is another.
Oh yeah.
But just yesterday, my little girl, she found a piece of plastic on the floor and stuck it in her mouth and started coughing and choking. I almost had a heart attack. I thought I didn't know. I reached in and she had started to go down her throat, and I pulled it out. But that scared me to death. And that's just something little. But she's at the point now where she's crawling, and I'm realizing, wow, I have to be a lot more careful.
I've watched my son smash his head into the floor, thinking that the dog bed was enough cushion in between his head and the floor, going at full speed to absorb the shock of the blow. And I freaked out. I'm usually pretty good, but I mean, yeah, you're right. Because anytime I see my son hurt, I mean, it kills me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And how much more intense what you would have been going through with your son and all of his symptoms and
right. And when those first 4 years, I kind of segment my life into 4, 4, and 4. It's been 12 years, so the first 4 were the first from diagnosis of Lyme. The first 4 were the medicine, the second 4 were chiropractic, and the third 4 were really getting at the cause of what was going on with us. But Ryan, in that first 4, he got categorized as autistic and cerebral palsy by the neuro-ophthalmologist that saw him, and he was going blind in his left eye. And
Wow.
the treatment that we did totally reversed, like treating these diseases reversed him. He started flat walking, again. He wasn't toe walking. He stopped flailing. His comprehension came back. He wasn't born, he didn't have that at birth. He wasn't autistic. The changes in him started when he was around 9. Well, 5 to 9, from 5 to 9. And 9 is when he got really severe. So when I saw that he could reverse, and he was labeled with things that people say we have no, cure for or no origin of, I said, really, God, where are you taking me?
Yeah.
There are true answers. Some people just obviously are not wanting to figure that out.
Right. Or like you had mentioned earlier, they've been taught one way so long and so much that to consider a natural side of things is, I think, honestly, a lot of times they probably just consider it primitive and uninformed. I mean, I think that's the attitude that I sense from doctors when I've talked to them about my herbalist and well, they're doing this, and like, it's just kind of like they think that these people are ignorant. Like they don't really know what's going on, and in truth, they know more about what's going on than you do. But you've been taught one way of thinking, and to think only that way, you don't have as Leonard would said, you don't have a scope or a paradigm to understand what you're talking about.
Well, it's also I just recently saw a new chiropractor, and I'm actually about to commit to a program with him because I really believe in what he's doing, and I have severe back problems. And turns out I have 2 curves in my spine. I should only have 1 curve in my spine. But there's a whole lot more with that. I don't want to get into my story. But he just said that with the medical, he said, we were sitting down talking about the medical field, and he said, the big problem with the medical field, hold on. He's like, one of the big problems with the medical field is that it's a one size fits all. They try to give everybody the same deal. Everybody's the same. And, he even said a lot of chiropractors are the same way, too. Turn you on your side. Okay, see you later. And it's not like that. That works for about 80% of people. Mm-hmm. So when 80% of your customers are happy or your patients are happy, and then 20% of them are just in a living hell. Right.
Well, they're just putting a Band-Aid on something, and they're not really going back far enough to see what's causing it.
Mm-hmm.
What's causing it. Now, with the whole Lyme thing, I started doing research, and there actually was a facility on Plum Island, New York. I don't know if you guys have ever read anything on that.
I have not.
But our government had a disease research facility there. We hired in German scientists after World War II, and their job was to do research that kept our food supply safe. And here they were working with ticks and Lyme, and the people that worked in this facility were from Lyme, Connecticut. And it was an island, and so they travel back and forth. But what they didn't realize in that time frame was that when you're working with things that dangerous, you can't hold it to an island, because an island has birds and an island has deer that swim back and forth from the mainland and stuff. So these things, that's how things got out. And then we had couple of big hurricanes that come through that knocked into that facility and, deemed it where things, came out. You can read a book. There's a book called Lab 257. Mm-hmm. A guy kind of writes on that. But you can see a lot of the Lyme pattern follows the bird migration pattern. Like where the heavy instances of Lyme disease is where the birds fly from, across the state and down to Florida and things like that.